Hey everyone, thank you for checking out the Majora's Mask podcast. We did this episode live with Turocelt on his Twitch. His link will be in the description, and this microphone came out a little muddy. Sorry about the quality, but without further ado, here we go.
Hello everyone, and thank you for watching Zelda's Domain, a home for everything Zelda. And today we're doing the Majora's Mask podcast. We have a special guest with us, Turocelt. He's on Twitch and soon to be on YouTube. You can find him on there. And we're going to talk about our experiences from the early 2000s when Majora's Mask initially came out and our experiences to it coming out on Nintendo Switch Online. So, Turocelt, you want to introduce yourself? Say hi.
Hi, how's it going? My name is Turocelt. I am on Instagram as Turocelt. Like you said, I do have a YouTube channel, but it's not quite a thing yet. But primarily, I stream Zelda and a bunch of other games on Twitch. I'm also in a band called Fear the Wolves as a singer. Feel free to check that out too. And yeah, a big avid gamer. You know, I've been playing games for as long as I can remember. You know, I guess I was 6 or something when I got my N64 when I was a kid. So.
Right. We didn't know each other back then. We met in middle school, actually. So we have our own separate experiences about Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask growing up, which is kind of cool.
We definitely do.
Um,
We're from the same generation though.
Yeah, absolutely. We're definitely the same age. So let's talk about the end of Ocarina of Time when Navi leaves. It's sad, it's depressing, and most Zelda games didn't really link storylines up together, but Majora's Mask did. So instantly, you're kind of hooked on the idea of like a movie sequel, right?
Yeah.
Right away.
Can I just ask that question? Is this the only Zelda game that's a direct sequel?
Well, there's a Link Between Worlds off the top of my head. I mean, Oracle of Ages, Oracle of Seasons. So I think there's a few out there. I don't really know too much of the lore.
Seasons and Ages might be, yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple. There's a couple that directly linked together.
This is definitely the only 3D Zelda. That's a sequel.
Yeah, especially in back-to-back releases, and these were only 2 years apart.
Yeah.
Actually, so Majora's Mask was released in April of 2000 in Japan and October of 2000 in North America, and then later in 2015 on 3DS. 3DS version looks great. They worked a lot harder on the 3DS version than the Ocarina of Time version. Have you played that at all? Have you checked out the ROMs, or have you got a 3DS for that one?
I have not ever. I've only ever been a fan of the original. I've heard some things about it that I just didn't like, so I kind of just boycotted it.
It kind of has a little bit of that Skyward Sword appeal. You know, when you first see how Link runs and walks, you're like, okay, am I gonna have to watch this for 30 hours, you know? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, totally.
Well, anyway, so before Majora's Mask came out, before the game came out, do you remember hearing any rumors or seeing any trailers for the game? What was your experiences before you got to play the game?
I remember this amazing commercial that was like the end of the world, and it was like a timer, and people were just doing things and walking around being like, well, I don't know what to do today. You know, we only got 8 hours left. And it was just it was crazy. And then when I got the game for my birthday or something, but I used to do this thing when I was a kid. This is back in the day when you would actually buy games from the store, where there wasn't like an online market for this shit. So you would go to the store and you would see a game, and remember, there wasn't internet back then too. So you would say, hey, can I take a look at that? And the girl from Walmart or whatever would get the keys and she would show you the case. And I remember reading the case and like thinking, oh wow, there was like a scary moon on it. It talked about like you only had 3 days to beat the game. Like, what does that mean? You know, so there's a lot of cool mystery about that.
Concept. You know, I thought this was some magical game that had a background clock like a computer when you turned it off. That's what I thought when I first heard that.
Yeah.
Me and my dad and the neighborhood kids, I remember all having a discussion about it and just going like, what does it mean, right? And then I remember my first initial reaction to that was, oh, that's BS. This is going to be a stupid game. That was my first reaction. This is stupid.
Yeah.
But I didn't even play the game at that point. That was just seeing, I think probably the same trailer that you saw if it was on cable.
Yeah, it must have been. You could probably find it on
So,
YouTube, actually. For anyone who wants to
so
look at it.
turns out the 3-day cycle is actually 56 minutes is how long it is uninterrupted.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that's a good way to look at it. You have about an hour, right? But when I get into the game, I usually restart back to day one, probably every 20 minutes or after you finish a thing, you know?
Yeah. How long is it with there's just for anyone that doesn't know, there's a song there's a special song you could play that'll extend that time. How much time do you get if you extend it?
Yeah, so this song you don't have to play, you don't have to unlock at any time in the game if you have
Inverted
the
song of
Ocarina.
time.
Yeah, the inverted Song of Time. So you play the Song of Time backwards and it doubles the amount. So I think it gives you like just under 2 hours, so like
Hmm.
an hour 45 probably, something like that.
Yeah.
And then if you play it with double notes, that skips ahead 12 hours.
Hmm. Cool.
The double Song of Time, did you know that one?
Yep, I knew that one. Right, AA down, right, AA down, AA down, right, AA down.
So I want to talk for a quick second about the landscape of 2000. You know, when the game came out, we actually got our hands on the game. For me, I was lucky enough, very lucky that I didn't get a lot of brand new games day one back then, but I did get Majora's Mask, seeing as how it only released in North America a month and a half before Christmas. But a lot of other games had just come out too, so it was a fantastic year for games. Between PC and N64, Perfect Dark had released, Diablo 2 had released, Banjo-Tooie, Paper Mario, Counter-Strike, and the sequel to GoldenEye, The World Is Not Enough 007. So, very competitive year, and looking back, we don't really get years like this very often anymore. Doesn't feel
No,
like it, does it?
it's definitely a drought these days.
Like I had to short list that there was 50 games from 2000 that were like masterpieces, or maybe they're just not old enough to be masterpieces now. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
we- we've definitely seen the landscape of the gaming industry change throughout the last 20 years or so. So anyway, the first time you play Majora's Mask, you find out that the timer is relevant to your save state. On the original version, that you have to always save at an owl, and if you shut the console off without saving, it reverts you back to state day one, and you lose all your rupees and all your inventory, and you go all the quests reset back from the solid state. So I wonder if that's going to carry over in the Nintendo Switch version. They didn't change much in the Ocarina of Time version. They now just changed the water in the water temple, but that was the only change they made. On the 3DS version, they made a lot of quality of life improvements that I guess you don't know about, Bronson.
No.
Um, they moved the bank to behind the wall, behind the clock tower. They changed all the amounts, and they made the save state system a lot more streamlined. And there's these Masks of Truth statues that tell you where to go next in the storyline. So
Mm.
it holds your hand a lot more than it used to.
Well, that's kind of good. You know, I gotta be honest. When I was a kid, this was the game you kind of needed the manual or one of those Nintendo Power booklets. You know, you needed the power. You needed the power in
It
Nintendo
feels
Power.
like it. I mean, it feels like it. I got the guide for my birthday, so it'd been 9 months after I got the game. And I remember after I got the game, or after I got the guide, I crushed it. But that first year or so without the guide, it was really hard. I didn't walk through it like I did Ocarina of Time. Ocarina of Time is very like it tells you where to go, right? It's very directional. But Majora's Mask is very small and condensed. And this actually brings up a point I wanted to talk about. It has an underwhelming beginning to it. You start out the first 3 days, you kind of get through it as the deku. You accept that that's the main quest, but then going to the swamp world is almost a bit underwhelming compared to the rest of the game. Once you get past the first world or so, the game opens up to, like the beaches and the mountains and the deserts, and each area has its own sub areas. And I feel like the swamp didn't really tackle that as much, or it's kind of bland and boring. So, on top of, the depressing, bland atmosphere that I think Majora's Mask has, I think it almost nails it because to me, there's a festival on Friday and it's like a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So to me, it's like you start off on your boring Wednesday, Thursday. And I think they kind of nailed that perfect. It's totally different than Ocarina of Time. Ocarina of Time feels like a Disney movie in comparison. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, definitely. And it's just Ocarina of Time has like all the staples in it, you know, like the fire temple, the fire temple, the water temple, you know, the forest temple, you know, and Ocarina of Time has like you talked about like those Disney elements, like you know you go into a giant fish, for instance, and stuff like that. Whereas Majora's Mask doesn't really have that stuff. It's a lot more serious in tone. Yeah, I definitely want to talk about like negatives later on, but I have a lot of comments on like you're talking about like how the dungeons and stuff are set up. What I would like to talk about though, because now we're on it and we're kind of playing it right now, is the beginning area, and this is an area, at least for me, that it took me a while to get out of it when I was a kid. Like I had no idea what to do because Majora's Mask is very cryptic. You have to do this entire thing where you only have 3 days to do it as well, where you have to figure out to go to the Great Fairy. And you know what? That's what's kind of cool about Majora's Mask. You talked about like not holding your hand. It's great. You gotta figure all this crazy side quest out. Like you know, Majora's Mask is like Witcher level of a fucking side quest.
It doesn't. That's kind of what it meant about the underwhelming start. When you start out, it doesn't feel like it's in depth as Ocarina of Time, but then you find out there's just as many heart pieces, you know? So that means there has to be just as many quests.
Yeah.
So the game in scale is just as big as Ocarina of Time. It almost just has another dimension of puzzles behind everything with the time features, right?
Yeah.
So everything is just very hidden, you know, whether it's running into someone in the middle of the night, you know, like the burglary or the lady at the inn, or going to the right spot on day 2 at the right minute, you know, like stuff you'd never find is very interesting. So it starts off, you know, kind of like a standard Zelda game, but as you go through it, and this is why a lot of people love this game, is just the dimensions of puzzles, and it actually is the size of Ocarina of Time. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think the map probably is, to be honest. I mean, it's got to be close. If not,
I mean, maybe the map's a little smaller, but all the quests all the mass quests, all the heart pieces quests, that's the size of Ocarina of Time, if not more. Wouldn't you say? It's more RPG-ish, even.
Yeah, but there's not as much. We got half the dungeons though. Keep in mind for that. There are no Skulltulas, and Ocarina of Time got to kind of cheat with Ocarina of Time pulled a Link to the Past, where they kind of like recycled the world twice. So that's where like Ocarina of Time kind of might feel a bit bigger in that regard. But as far as like side content and like memories and stuff like that, that's where Majora's Mask kind of has more depth, because you're literally doing quests that you have to line up your schedule to be at a certain spot, so it makes the game feel so much more bigger, because you have to just zoom into the world, you know? You really have to live in Clocktown and figure out everyone's routines and where they're going to be at this certain time, you know? So that's where Majora's Mask is bigger than Ocarina of Time. There's a lot more depth in the characters.
Yeah, they took that element of role-playing in Ocarina of Time and then just expanded on it, because in Ocarina of Time, they expect you to roll into town as a newcomer. You're playing as an outsider, a traveler. That's what everyone knows you as, right? Because you have the sword.
Yeah. Hey, those clothes aren't from around here.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like they took that element and then just ran with it. And then there's all these crazy side stories. I mean, the Mass Quest side stories, we could talk about those for days and days and days. Just all the different stories you meet about the postman or the cafe's quest, and just everything involved is in way more in depth than Ocarina of Time. It's a debate, you know, which one is better, but I think, you know, they're two parts of the same movie, right? It's like Star Wars. Everyone considers like Star Wars part of the one universe. Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask definitely go hand in hand. playing one after the other is very satisfying because they don't copy each other. They really just took the formula in 2 years. I'm not sure how long the development was. I think you told me on that. It's only like a year and a half, right? Because 2 years between releases, and twist it into something interesting that we haven't really seen in any in any Zelda game ever. You know.
I actually think the story goes, there was a person at Nintendo that wanted to make another Zelda game, and here's how I think it goes anyway. And Shigeru Miyamoto said to that guy, okay, you can have your Zelda game, but you got to make it in 1 year. So that's why a lot of the assets are recycled and stuff. So basically this guy was like, oh my god, working 20 hours a day just to pump this out in 1 year to kind of like prove his point that he could do it. And it's the most interesting thing.
Sounds like a nightmare.
But it's the most interesting thing that I truly believe, as someone that's as like an artist and stuff myself. I believe that constriction curates the best art. Like if you're restricting yourself to let's say you were, I don't know, painting a painting, but you restricted yourself to only using so many colors, you might actually make something much more creative because you've kind of set a rule for yourself. And that's kind of what happened with Majora's Mask, I think, which made it into such a cool game.
Absolutely. So let's you had do you have the player's guide from day one when you got the game? Did you try to attempt any of it solo?
No, so what happened was, this is a time in my life where my stepdad was around and we would play these games together, and we kept getting stuck after the snow temple. Yeah. We were always getting stuck after that, so my stepdad was mad, and one day at like some random, I don't know, corner store, we just bought the game guide finally. Like, yeah, that's how that happened.
That's hilarious. And then I'm sure shortly after that you got 100%.
Oh yeah, just doing all the things. There's also like Majora's Mask has like 6 bottles too. Like there's a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there's so many. It's like arbitrary. It's like, how about more bottles? How about some more? Like they're just trying to fill the screen up.
Yeah, totally.
When I got the player's guide back in the day, I was the only kid on my block to have it, and I remember going on vacation to Chilliwack actually for a couple days or a week or something, and one of my friends had come to my house and said that he talked to me on the phone and said that I could borrow the player's guide, which is total BS. He's trying to steal my player's guide because everyone had it. No one had the internet. Everyone wanted these answers, right? It was pretty funny thinking back the pre-internet days.
You know
and
what?
Getting...
Sorry, I need to interject because some fucking kid stole my player's guide. His name is Jesse Lewis. Fuck that guy. Jesse Lewis, if you're watching this, go fuck yourself. You owe me a player's guide. I'm telling you. It's so funny you talked about, I lent it out being as fucking gullible, and some kids stole it from me. Yeah. And those player guides looked really nice too. I almost want to buy one off of eBay just to...
It looked just as nice as the cartridge did.
Yeah.
The holographic cartridge, it looked just as nice as that.
Definitely did.
Oh man, I know. That's before internet though. The information was so sacred knowledge.
Really was.
You didn't have $20 to spend on the book back then. I remember that. I think it was $19.99 when I saw it in the stores, and then I got it from my birthday shortly after that. Oh man. What are we at for time right now, by the way? Roughly. Do you know?
I'm not sure. We were at 26 minutes, 51 seconds.
Sweet. So anyway, to finish up my story about my player's guide story, I got to the very end. I did everything. There was one heart piece. I had 3/4 of the last heart piece, 19 hearts. And I never found that last heart container, even with the player's guide. And I swore by myself, I thought I went through the whole list. And I thought I went through it twice. And then after that, Xbox was out, so who cares? So,
Yeah.
but I never got that last piece, and I obviously never forgot it. I
Yeah.
think I got 100% later in like 2012, but
Yeah.
even if you have all the answers, it doesn't mean you're gonna beat the game. And that's what's wild about Zelda. It becomes a who's of a checklist of ideas of what have I done and what have I not done.
So, before we get to like before we get to our critiques and whatnot,
Yes.
what are some more positives that we could talk about? Like we've already talked about the art and stuff and the interesting concept at the time.
We can talk about the game itself if you'd like.
Yeah. So
So-
absolutely. I mean, it's more Ocarina of Time. Like
Yeah,
that's
okay.
kind of nice, right? I mean, Ocarina of Time was such a good game. We basically got another one. Same controls.
It scratches that itch. You know how to
Same
play
loop,
from the
yeah.
start, but you don't. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Who doesn't love it? The funny thing is that I could be wrong. Is Majora's Mask rated E or rated T? I think it's still rated E, like Ocarina of Time was.
I think so too.
But either way, this Majora's Mask addressed issues not that kid shows literally avoided even back then in the 90s or to early 2000s. Right away, even since you started this game, it's talked about, you get robbed at the beginning. It talks about a deity holding in a piece of wood that's old for thousands of years. And then it's like a story of all these criminals trying to get this master power back that's similar to the Triforce in nature, right? It's like the negative Triforce, which is really interesting. It's kind of like the alternate world to Hyrule. But that being said, you play Ocarina of Time, you're in Kokiri Forest, it's all happy, you feel like you're a kid, you leave the forest, it's all triumphant music, and then in Majora's Mask, it's sad, depressing Wednesday, it can be boring and dull if you have nothing to do and nowhere to go, kind of like real life. That's why I like the RPG elements in it. But I think it addresses a lot of topics, a lot of games, and especially media at any age doesn't really address. There's a lot of like deep wisdom hidden in the script.
Definitely. And who doesn't love that iconic countdown?
Oh yeah, and let's quickly talk about the last couple minutes in the game when the carnival starts and that moon is like inches and feet above the earth, and then everyone who for the last 3 days said, "Oh, it's okay, nothing's gonna happen, nothing bad will happen." Now it's like you get to see like the psyches of all the adults and shop owners in town break down.
Yeah,
It's
you
so,
can
it's so
literally
interesting.
go to the sword master's house and he's like hiding and praying in a corner.
Yeah, and he's the bravest guy, he was the one teaching you to fight and stuff. And there was the carpenter laughs at all his coworkers or all his workers for bailing on him, bailing town.
Yeah, because
It-
he
it-
wants to see it. He fucking built that shit, so he's like, well, I'm staying.
Actually, if you can in the game here, you should I don't know what date is in the game, go to the town hall. The town hall has one of the best cutscenes in the game when the whole in the mayor's office, when it's an argument between people trying to convince them that the moon is falling, and then the other half of the
if they
people
should
believe that
cancel
nothing is wrong.
if they should cancel the carnival of time, well, and the reason why they don't want to cancel it is because it's such a big deal for the city. So
Right, but doesn't
Yeah.
that just like even as a kid or no matter what age you play the game as, that just like it's Nintendo's way of speaking like, the corporations versus the people's mentality, the government versus the little guys, what's
Yeah.
actually going on, that's another topic that you don't see necessarily in kid shows. And playing this game at 2 a.m. and you see everyone huddled in a corner, you're like, well, I'm not ready for bed.
yeah,
There's no
definitely.
happy ending to this. It just keeps repeating and repeating for months until you beat the game. And you get one happy ending once.
Yeah.
So, anyway, let's get into the negatives, I guess.
Yeah,
eh?
absolutely. So yeah, So the thing that I always felt that wasn't up to snuff was the dungeons and the bosses. I always felt like I don't know what it was, but they just never hit the mark for me. Maybe it was just a stylistic choice on that, but I always never liked the dungeons as much as Ocarina of Time. I liked everything that led up to the dungeons, but come time to actually do the dungeons themselves, I was always like, I guess.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think I kind of know the reason for that.
Yeah.
Um, the Deku Forest or the Deku Palace or whatever, to me that doesn't feel exciting because Deku reminds me of beginner stages in Zelda, so it's something just to get through, right? And then the Snow Temple, it's known for that stupid spiral in the middle and all those jumps on the N64 controller being hard to navigate with the Goron and running out of magic and running in and out. That's everyone's memory with that. And then the third one is the Water Temple, and just, enough said. And then the fourth one is this difficult upside down dungeon. But honestly, I think the first temple and the last temple are my favorite. I don't mind the Snow Temple once you kind of get the hang of it, but it's kind of dull in its own way.
Yeah. Oh, Dustin, I don't want to get sidetracked here, but we totally forgot to mention the fact that in this Zelda game, you could turn into all of the different races. We didn't even
Well,
talk about the
the
masks.
idea,
Everyone probably knows
well,
that, but
I guess the idea is you probably find out if you're watching the video with
yeah,
the audio as we're doing it. So I didn't mention that, but at the same time, anytime I do any discussion videos, I like to stay away from the basic facts because I want to, anyone who's played the game or anyone that knows about the game a little bit will probably know about that. Maybe we should have touched on it in a bit, but the points I had written down here were, I guess, a little beyond the basic, we'll
yeah.
call it. So
Okay.
I'm glad you're here with me in this video. We definitely should do more like this. I like promoting your Twitch and promoting the YouTube and creating a community. We both have Discords, many Discord channels.
Yeah.
Um, your Twitch is doing great, by the way. Hey, you're
You
you're
think
hitting the
so?
money
Thank
on
you.
that. You got affiliate in 2 weeks or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, dude. They even pay you for ads. Actually, I got 3 cents.
Moving on up.
Yeah, but what else for blemishes are here? I guess there was the cryptic nature of this game. Like I feel like a lot of young kids got locked out of leaving the clock town and like actually turning into your normal self. I mean, I definitely didn't do it my first time around. I was fucking around trying to kill the guy stealing from the old lady from the bomb shop as a Deku. I remember that. Like I had no idea what to do when I was young. But
Yeah, you don't know what's valuable and what's not.
the 3DS version does fix a lot of that stuff. So that's good.
Yeah, but the thing is that the 3DS version is not coming out to Nintendo Switch Online in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
So the NSO Nintendo Switch Online edition is going to be different. Definitely going to be covering that as we go out because I did that for Ocarina of Time as well. There was a lot of discussions on the cutscenes, a lot of discussions on how things moved. The
Yeah.
input lag too. I don't buy that. That's not a thing. But anyway, do you have any other negatives to say about the game?
Yeah. What do you feel about the music?
I briefly touched on that when I was talking about the atmosphere on a boring Wednesday, we'll call it. That's day one. And day two was a Thursday. It's raining. I think it's going for this atmosphere, and you either buy it or you don't, right? It's very different if you're looking for another Disney movie necessarily, right? You might not find it within Majora's Mask, but you find something unique that you haven't found in any other game, and you wouldn't necessarily search for it in any other game.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So, the biggest problem I think with Majora's Mask is that it's a game based around trying new things and exploring based on the time of day and people and items and locations. So every time you try to explore, you have an hour, let's just say, you have an hour to explore the game before you have to restart. Well, every hour you're losing your magic. Every hour you're losing your inventory and all your rupees. And how many times do you forget that there's stuff that money you didn't put in the bank, or arrows you could have used, and you saved for no reason, right? So that penalty, I think, like, I don't have a problem with it necessarily. It's something you can work around, but I think that's what locks a lot of new players out, is that trying new things has a penalty, and that penalty is taking away all your inventory.
Mm-hmm. You see, I
So
I
yeah,
never got bothered by losing my inventory and losing rupees because rupees never really did anything. you
the only
know?
thing you do for them is put them in the bank so you can get the heart pieces into your
Yeah,
wallets.
yeah, that's it. More
So
rupees to get more rupees.
yeah, and it doesn't take that long because you learn where all the silver rupee locations are, and you just load up on those, which is really nice. There's lots of silver rupees in the game. You just kind of make this path every time you start the game, hunting down the rupee locations and load up your bank. Rupees have never been a problem in Ocarina of Time. I remember
Not until
even
the randomizers.
not until the randomizers. No,
yeah.
exactly. I love the randomizers. We gotta get
Uh,
on some more randomizer
yeah.
races these
Yeah.
days, eh?
Just to touch on the music, for my opinion on it, I mean, like, cause like here's the thing, we are comparing this heavily to Ocarina of Time, and
Hmm.
like there are definitely good parts of the music, but a lot of the music doesn't stick with you as much as some of Ocarina of Time stuff. Like I can't, I okay, the only dungeon that I remember is probably the water one. I can remember the fucking clanks and stuff of all the metal sounds in the background. But like I couldn't tell you how the forest temple goes in the Majora's Mask. But I know exactly how every dungeon sounds in Ocarina of Time. So I feel like there's definitely a different stylistic choice for the music. Um I definitely like the art direction. I don't think the art direction is nothing negative on that. Um yeah.
Majora's Mask is not also a product of Ocarina of Time. It's a product of two other games, two other canceled projects, believe it or not. Did you know that?
Maybe that 64DD thing?
Yeah, so Majora's Mask is Ocarina of Time mixed with Gaiden for the disk drive, and then Zelda Ura. So Ura was gonna be the original sequel. Zelda Gaiden was gonna be the Master Quest Master Quest expansion, and then they took the assets of those three games and made Majora's Mask.
That's cool.
So there was lot of Zelda projects going on at the time, and I really wish we had the disk drive going on.
Yeah.
So anyway, do you have anything further to say on the game from there?
Only thing I have to say is if you haven't played it, play it. And if you, any way you can, if it's going to be on Nintendo Switch, do that. It's a great game.
Absolutely. Out of all those great games I announced earlier, like Counter-Strike, Perfect Dark, Diablo, Paper Mario, the game of the year the game of the year award actually went to Perfect Dark, and second place was Majora's Mask. So, tough year, very tough year. So, if Perfect Dark had not come out that year, Majora's Mask would have got the official game of the year award, but it did get second place, something to note. So definitely a huge and heavy reason to play Majora's Mask on Nintendo Switch Online when it comes out. So I think we're just going to end the recording from here. We can stay live on the live stream for a few minutes and have a afterwards discussion. So if you want to end the recording after this, we can do that.
Okay, man.
So anyway, I want to thank everyone for watching Zelda's Domain, and please like, comment, subscribe.